I lived in apartment buildings my whole adult life, and I've gotten used to the unusual weirdness. Loud neighbors, strange smells, and people arguing through thin walls. But nothing prepared me for what happened in the building I moved into last winter. I still don't know how to explain it without sounding insane, but I'm going to tell exactly how it happened. Because if someone else out there is dealing with the same thing, you need to know the signs. The first night, I moved into the building in early December. It was old, but not in a creepy way. More like built in the 70s and never updated. Beige walls, fluorescent lights, carpet that had seen better decades. My unit was 407. Across the hall was 409. I didn't meet the guy who lived there for the first 3 days, but I heard him. Not talking, nor walking, not watching television, just breathing. Slow, steady breathing through the door, like he stood right behind it for hours. I'd leave my apartment, and the moment I stepped into the hallway, I'd hear it. A long inhale, a long exhale, like someone trying to stay calm. I told myself it was just thin walls, old vents, or bad acoustics. But the breathing always stopped the second I reached the elevator, like he wasn't listening. The first time I saw him was around 11 p.m. on a Thursday. I'd go out and grab a package from the lobby. When I came back upstairs, he was standing in the hallway, facing my door. Not his, but mine. He didn't move when I stepped out of the elevator, didn't turn or acknowledge me at all. He was tall, maybe 6'4", skinny, wearing a gray hoodie, with the hood up and the hands in his pockets. His posture was wrong though, too stiff and too still, like he was holding his breath. I cleared my throat. Hey man, you good? But nothing. He didn't even twitch. I walked past him slowly, unlocked my door, and slipped inside. Before I closed it, I glanced back. He was still staring at my door, still not moving or breathing. Over the next week, I noticed patterns. He never left his apartment during the day. He only came out between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. He never spoke, he never blinked, and he never reacted to sound. But the worst part, he always stood facing something, either a door, a wall, a corner, or even a window, never moving nor shifting, just observing. Not with his eyes, with his whole body, like he was listening through his skin. I started calling him the quiet man in my head, and I avoided him as much as possible. One night around 2 a.m., I woke up to a noise in the hallway, a soft scraping sound like fabric dragging across the carpet. I checked the peephole. The quiet man was standing directly in front of my door, just facing it. His head was tilted slightly like he was listening to something inside my apartment. I held my breath, and he leaned closer, very close, until his forehead pressed against the door. I stepped back from the peephole. My heart was pounding, and then I heard it, a whisper, not from him, but from inside my apartment, behind me. It said, "Don't move." I spun around, but nothing was there. When I looked back through the peephole, he was gone. The next night were quiet, too quiet. Then the footsteps started, not above me. I lived on the top floor, in the ceiling. Slow, deliberate steps, pacing back and forth directly over my bed. I called maintenance, and they checked the roof, but nothing. No animals or small damage or even footprints. But the footsteps continued every night, always between 2 and 3 a.m. Always slow, always measured, and always circling, like someone was mapping the room from above. One night, the footsteps stopped abruptly. Then came a knock on my bedroom wall. Three slow ones. I froze. And another three knocks, this time closer to the headboard. Then a whisper through the drywall. It said, "Let me in," and my blood ran cold. It wasn't the quiet man's voice. It wasn't a man's voice at all. It was higher and thinner, like a child trying to imitate an adult. I didn't sleep that night or the next night. I finally broke and went to the leasing office. I asked about the guy in 409, and the manager frowned. He told me nobody lives in 409. I laughed nervously. "No, I mean the tall guy, hoodie and never talks." She shook her head. "That unit's been empty for 6 months. The last tenant broke their lease and left in the middle of the night." My stomach dropped, and I asked why. She hesitated, then she said something I'll never forget. They said something was living in the walls. I went back upstairs shaking. When I reached my floor, the hallway lights were off. It was pitch black. I used my phone flashlight, and the beam hit something immediately. There he was, the quiet man, standing in front of my door again, but this time his hood was down. And his head was wrong. It was too smooth, too long. He had no hair or eyes, no ears, and no mouth. Just a deep indentation where his eyes should have been. Not eyes, but holes, empty black holes. He turned toward me, not with his head, but with his whole body, rotating stiffly like a mannequin on a display stand. Then he took a step, and another, and one more. I ran. I didn't pack, I didn't look back, and I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I moved out the next morning, and I left everything behind. 2 weeks later, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. It was just breathing, slow and steady, familiar, then a whisper. It said Unit 507. That's my new apartment number, and last night at 2:13 a.m., I heard footsteps in the ceiling again. Whoever you are, I hope we never meet. I didn't know the human body could recognize danger before the mind did. But the night everything started, my skin reacted before anything else. A crawling sensation, like static electricity rolling under the surface. It happened the first time I heard the sound, a faint tapping. Not from the walls, not from the ceiling, from below, which made no sense because I lived on a bottom floor. At first I thought it was pipes, or maybe the building setting. But the tapping wasn't random, it had rhythm, intention, and a pattern that felt too deliberate to ignore. Three taps, then a pause, and then two more, and then another pause, and then another tap. Like someone or something was trying to communicate to me in a different tone. I didn't tap back, not that night, but I should have known that ignoring it wouldn't make it stop. My apartment was small, a single room with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a floor made of old wooden planks that creaked under the slightest pressure. I'd only lived there for a week when the tapping began. By the second week, the tapping had changed. It wasn't coming from beneath the floorboards anymore, it was coming through them. I'd be lying in bed, half asleep, when I'd feel the faintest vibration under my mattress. A tremor or a pulse, like something was moving under the floor, brushing against the underside of the wood. Sometimes it felt like fingertips, sometimes it felt like breathing. I tried to convince myself that it was my imagination, or maybe stress or sleep deprivation, anything but the truth. But the truth did not care what I believed. It kept tapping. Three and two and one taps again, always at 2:46 a.m., always in the same pattern, and like it was always waiting. The night it changed, I was sitting on the floor. My headphones were on, and I was editing a video. The tapping started again. It was soft, rhythmic, and insistent. I froze, and this time it wasn't the unusual pattern. It was faster, urgent. I pulled off my headphones and pressed my ear to the floor, and the tapping stopped. It was silent. Then slowly, something scraped across the underside of the floorboards. A long, dragging sound, like nails or claws tracing the wood grain. Then a whisper, not a voice, not exactly, more like a vibration shaped into words. A resonance, a message, or let me in. I jerked back so hard I hit the wall behind me. My heart hammered, my breath caught in my throat. I stared at the floor and nothing moved, but the wood, I swear the wood looked different, slightly warped, bowed upward, as if something had pressed against it from below. I didn't sleep that night or the next. By the end of the month, the floor had changed completely. The boards never near my bed had begun to separate. Tiny gaps forming between them, widening day by day. I could see darkness between the cracks, not the kind of darkness you get from a crawl space or foundation. This was much deeper, like looking into a void. One morning I woke up to find a small hole in the floor, perfectly round, no splintering or broken wood, just a clean circle, about the size of a coin. I should have moved out right then, but I did not, because when I leaned over the hole, I heard something breathing. It was slow, wet, and heavy, and beneath it, faint whispers, not words or names, but my name, over and over again, like it was chanting or praying, or possibly hungry. The hole grew. Every night a little more wood disappeared, not broken or chewed, not cut, but just gone, like it had dissolved. By the time the hole was the size of my fist, I stopped going near it. I avoided that side of the room entirely, and I slept on the couch. I always kept the lights on, but the tapping did not stop. It got loud, more impatient. One night, I woke up to the sound of something wet hitting the floor. It was a drip, then another, and another. I turned on my phone flashlight and aimed it toward the hole. Something stared back at me, an eye. It was large, pale, and veined, pressing right up against the underside of the floorboards, staring through the hole with a hunger so intense it felt physical. I screamed. The eye blinked, and the tapping started again. It was frantic and desperate, pounding. I ran out of the apartment barefoot and did not stop running until I reached the street. I didn't go back inside until sunrise, and when I did, the hole was gone. The floor was perfectly fine again, untouched, as if nothing had ever happened. But the tapping had followed me. I moved out the next day. I packed everything I owned into my car and drove across the city to a new building, to a new apartment and a new life. For a while, it worked. No tapping, no whispering or breathing, until last night. I swear, until last night at 2:46 a.m. I woke up to that familiar sound. The tapping started again. Not from the floor this time, but from the wall. I turned my head slowly, and there in the corner of the room, the paint was peeling away in a perfect circle. That hole, small at first, growing, and behind it breathing. It was wet, hungry, and waiting. The whisper came through the wall, vibrating through the plaster. I felt it through my bones. Let me in. The tapping started again, louder, closer, and I realized something horrifying. It wasn't living under the floor, or tied to the apartment, or tied to the building. It was tied to me. It had found me once again, and the hole in the wall was getting bigger. Thank you for listening, guys. Appreciate everything. Leave your feedback in the comments. It's appreciated. Stay tuned and stay listening. Thank you. I never believed the human mind could break quietly. I always imagined it would be loud, screaming or clawing, begging for someone to notice. But when mine finally cracked, it didn't make a sound, it just shifted, like a picture frame nudged a few inches off center. It started the night I moved into the new apartment. I'd been desperate for a place, anything, after my last roommate bailed and left me with rent I couldn't cover. So when I found a studio on the 12th floor of an old high rise downtown for half the price it should have been, I didn't ask any questions. I signed the lease, grabbed my boxes, and moved in before the ink dried. The building was old, but not in a charming way, more like it had been renovated too many times by people who didn't care. The hallways were always narrow, and the lights flickered. The elevator groaned like it resented every floor it had climbed. But the strangest thing, the thing I noticed immediately, was the mirror. It hung on the wall directly across from my bed. It was tall and narrow, framed in tarnished silver. It looked older than the building itself. I didn't remember seeing it during the walkthrough, but I'd been in a rush. Maybe I missed it. The first night I fell asleep facing toward it, and that's when everything began. I woke up at 3:17 a.m., not because of a noise, not because of a nightmare, but because I felt watched. My eyes snapped open, and the room was dark except for a faint glow of the city leaking through the blinds. I turned my head towards the mirror, and for a split second, just a fraction of a second, I saw something move inside it. Not my reflection, but something behind me. I sat up so still I nearly fell out of my bed. My heart hammered. I scanned the room, nothing but just shadows and silence. I told myself it was exhaustion, stress, or maybe even a trick of light. But when I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was still sitting up, a half a second behind me, like it had caught up, or was trying to at least. Over the next few days, the delay got worse. At first, it was barely noticeable, a blink that didn't sink or a head tilt that lagged. By the end of the week, my reflection was a full second behind. I tried everything, different lighting or different angles, recording on my phone, but the moment I hit record, the reflection behaved normally, perfectly synced, perfectly harmless. Only when I was alone did it glitch. Only when I wasn't filming. I started avoiding the mirror. I draped a blanket over it, but every morning I'd wake up to find the blanket on the floor and the mirror uncovered. I lived alone. I had no pets or visitors, and there was no explanation for the series of things that was happening. The first time it spoke, I thought I was dreaming. I was brushing my teeth and staring at the sink, refusing to look up. I could feel the mirror behind me. I could feel the weight of it, like a hand pressing between my shoulder blades. Then I heard it, a whisper, as soft and close. Look, I froze. The toothbrush slipped from my hand and clattered into the sink. My teeth hitched. My breath hitched. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The whisper came again, this time lower, hungrier. Look at me. My knees nearly buckled. I backed out of the bathroom without lifting my head and slammed the door and didn't open it again until morning. When I finally did, the mirror was fogged over. A single handprint smeared across the glass, too large to be mine. I tried to get rid of it, I really did. I grabbed the mirror and yanked it off the wall and dragged it to the dumpster behind the building. And I threw it in, walked away, and didn't even look back. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks until 3:17 a.m. I woke up to the sound of glass tapping. My stomach dropped, and I turned my head. The mirror was back on the wall, but this time, my reflection wasn't in it. Something else was, a silhouette, tall and thin, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, like it was studying its fingers too long or too sharp, pressed against the inside of the glass. I couldn't move or breathe. Then it smiled, not with a mouth, with its eyes. I don't remember getting out of bed. I don't even remember grabbing my keys or running down 12 flights of stairs barefoot. I just remember the cold night air hitting my face as I burst out into the street. I didn't go back inside, not that night or the next, not ever. I broke my lease, packed what I little I owned, and moved across city. I thought I was safe. I thought I had escaped, but last night proved I was wrong. I woke up again at 3:17 a.m. and there, hanging on the wall across from my bed in my new apartment, was that same mirror, the same tarnished frame, and the same warped glass, and inside it, pressed against the surface, was the silhouette. Only this time it wasn't tapping, it was pushing. The glass bulged outward like something was trying to force its way through. And as I watched, frozen in terror, a crack split down the center. A whisper leaked through. Look at me. The glass began to splinter, and I realized something horrible. It wasn't trying to mimic me or haunt me, but it was simply trying to replace me. If you want part two of this, guys, and you made it this far, please leave a comment down there or a like and subscribe if you want to. I really appreciate you listening. Stay tuned for the future. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.